What's happening, y'all? Man, welcome back to the Man Kave Experience with myself, Cedric and my dude, Ron Serving. Um, so grateful, man, to be back. Another beautiful day here in my neck of the woods, Austin, Texas. Just got to meet with some like minds and collab on some stuff, so that's all good. Uh, Man, just kind of excited to share my little parts of the puzzle or a little piece of the pie, I guess. So what's good with you, Ron? What's happening?
Oh, just some, kind of ups and downs with just life overall. Just, just not in a bad way. Just, kind of navigating through, just what we're going through in our lives. But really kind of checking in now today with just sitting in my energy. I think just knowing that, energy can, kind of flow in different ways, and sometimes my brain will take over, and I'll kind of start having these thoughts of lesser than, or what if, or those types of things. But just kind of regrounding myself as I'm speaking here right now. Just being aware that this too shall pass. Right? These, when you have these uncertainties and unknowns in our life, sometimes those are can be, can inundate our thought process and make us, feel a little fearful or uncertain. So just honoring that space of feeling that right now, and knowing that, again, as all things do, all things shall pass. So just connecting here, loving this space as we always love to create, and excited for the conversation.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. What's up? So man, what we wanted to talk about today, y'all, because sometimes we do a couple of recordings and we had a guest on and kind of having some technical difficulties. And Ron brought up, because there were some moments of silence. And, you're like, man, yo, that's a good topic. So sometimes just living life and doing what you do will bring up just something to kind of talk about, which happened here. And it's just kind of interesting, man, silence. And with those internet connections, and there was that moment, there are moments of silence in our life throughout the day, throughout whatever. And so talk to me a little bit about that, man. Like, what was going on? Like, how did it all happen?
So yeah, so when it kind of as I was going through it, I was like, oh, what's at the other end of this silence, right? Pausing, a little bit of lost dialogue, maybe a little bit lost audio or video feed. But that's what happens in life, right? I think, because there's different things about silence. When I think about it is, through my meditation practice, silence is golden. I mean, it's something that I look forward to have some times in between thoughts where there's that silence, there's that, kind of that energy that just kind of sits, and we experience that. So, silence for me, in that respect is amazing. But there's other things around silence that, that impact us in different ways, or we decide to let it impact us in different ways. So what I mean by that is, the things that we put out in the universe, and I'm relating this more to my coaching practice, about just the ripples that I feel like I put out there, and trusting that those ripples are reaching individuals, or just energy itself is going out there. And there's times where I struggle with what that looks like after it leaves, my fingertips, and I type out something, or I put something out there on a video feed and put it out there. So that silence for me at times can, create that, if I look back in time of, a little bit around acceptance, are the words or the things that I'm putting out there, are they accepted? Are they, appreciated? Are they of value? And then just when that happens, just understanding that that's not why I'm doing it. It's not important about what necessarily is received on the other end. It's just my willingness to create the things that come into my mind to share and put out there, knowing that I don't feel, just doesn't do me a disservice to keep them within, but it doesn't, feel like I'm putting the energy that I have out there in the universe to really be more available to whoever might, whomever might resonate with. So that silence just, for me, it has, kind of different effects and different things that just come up from that whole word and experience around silence. Another thing, just, and I'll turn it over to you, said, is, that silence that we create, like when we're doing public speaking, just that stop and just gathering our thoughts and that silence in the crowd. Because I do a lot of, I've done a lot of workshops in public speaking, and I've definitely sensed and appreciated the value of that silence that is as a result of, slowing down, gathering my thoughts. The audience is quiet, I'm quiet, which seems like an eternity, but that silence allows me then to reconnect with, the moment, connect with my purpose, connect to the reason that I'm up there speaking in front of this group of people. Yeah, and then the last thing that I'll say, and you can, kind of share your thoughts around silence, is just looking back in time. And this is why I was thinking of you, said, was looking back in time when, my son Anthony was, very young, and, taking naps, and just that silence that used to come, or I'd hope it would come for a period of time where there would be some some relaxation or to try to get something done. So I'm just, thinking out loud about just these different ways we experience silence and how it has and does continue to impact me. So, so do share what silence, what does that mean like for you, and said, in your life, because obviously you come from a much different background and experiences on a daily basis that you go through. So how does silence feel to you, or how do you experience that?
Yeah, man, it's silence. Silence is an interesting thing for me, man. I think I'm probably like a lot of people that's out there in the world, to where most times as I go throughout my day, silence can be a bad thing for the most part. Because it's like when my mind is quiet, when everything is quiet, that wheelhouse starts, because it's silent. It's like that's a moment for me to just but when I release, it's like a steamroll goes, and it's like going, so it's like a yin and a yang sometimes, because it triggers that. But then in the midst of all of that noise that's going on, it's the silence that calms it all down. It's like, okay, well, let me quiet my mind and quiet these thoughts down, because it's just so loud sometimes. So in that aspect, it's it's a yin and yang. And then you were talking about like Mosiah. Yeah, like man, sometimes you looking up at the clock, like, man, is it almost nap time? Like, oh, I just need a break from all the cooing, crying, and all of that. But what's funny is, like, this was the first weekend we didn't have him, for the whole weekend. So we had our date night, and doing all of that good stuff. But it was strange, like, okay, well, you go into the door, you're still creeping around. You're like, oh, damn, I don't need to creep around. He's not here. And it was strange being home. It's like, I'm used to listening for stuff, but I don't hear anything. It's strange. So it's interesting on that one too, like how sometimes we miss the noise, and I think we need it too, because it helps us enjoy the moments of silence.
Right.
So that's kind of how it is, like, for me, man. It's just the yin and the yang right now. And I wouldn't even say right now. It's probably going to be like that forever.
Right.
But it's just being aware enough in the moment to be able to say, okay, this is noise, and I do need silence. And silence created that. So how can I better manage that to where it doesn't go or happen as fast, or it's not as loud?
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm sitting with it.
So I was thinking while you were saying that, a couple things. One, I I remember that just the silence, like when Anthony was just an infant, you know, it's just like a newborn, and just that. I remember my wife being, you know, fearful of, you know, is he breathing? Because we hear nothing, you know, that silence of that, you know, like, oh my God, you know, I need to go in there and check on him because I don't hear anything. And then sure enough, you go in there and he's sound asleep. So that's just interesting, just kind of as you're talking about, you know, because my Anthony's 14 years old now. So, you know, that's, as time goes by very fast, those memories of him being silent in his crib, you know, you like yearn for that, right? Because then you know they're asleep, but then there's also that, you know, do I hear him breathing? Is he in there? So it's just interesting about that. The other thing I was thinking about, just that silence that we can create, or a pause. I guess that's, you know, pause can be creating you know, a variation of silence before we react to something. You know, that willingness to, because I think as men especially, and I'm definitely in this boat as far as, you know, reacting quickly to something that doesn't always lend itself to the right reaction or the right, you know, kind of comeback in situations, you know, defensiveness, you know, saying something in quickly in response to some other, you know, point that was made or something that was mentioned. But being willing more and more, and I'm learning more and more that this is available to me, is just stopping, pausing, not needing to react, you know, just creating that sense of, and again, I don't try to call it silence, but just that pause. But again, pause, you know, pausing is creating that silence, and just how powerful that is. I mean, I was alluding to public speaking and creating that pause. But just in our life, how we, you know, are typically reacting in a way that we are conditioned to. We've always, you know, this, you know, you say this and I respond this way. But if we, you know, move more and more towards the present moment, and then when these things come up, we know how we've typically reacted in the past. But what if we stopped and just didn't say anything for whatever time it took to maybe look at what options we have to on how we respond to things. I just, you know, I find myself, you know, with my wife at times, with Anthony at times, of, you know, that quick reaction. And I think that's, I guess I wouldn't say unfortunately, but part, you know, men have the tendency to want to, you know, finish the conversation, check the box, you know, end things, you know, kind of, you know, create some finality versus, you know, I think if we don't necessarily feel like that's what our intent or what we're looking for, just being curious. You know, we talked about this before, just be more curious and just maybe keeping our mouth shut, letting somebody express themselves and not feeling a need to respond. And that sense of silence that's created through that can often, and I've seen that happen, you know, on a daily basis, a much different result. And I think that's where we change the habits that we've had for all these years. And again, by, you know, what we learned as we grew up, and just thinking that's the only choice we have because that's the only choice we feel like we've ever had. But that's, you know, that doesn't necessarily have to be true. So I'm curious, you know, for you said, you know, when you, because you know, you practice mindfulness, you know, you've done your meditation. Have you found in your life, you know, opportunities where in the past, you know, you would quickly respond in a certain way, that's kind of the default, and now being a little more mindful, how that space, silence, pause, whatever you want to call it, opens up, you know, for a different experience for you?
Hell yeah, I'm in a relationship, bro. I mean,
Right.
yeah, like, that's all. But that's really the times where it rears head the most, and sometimes at work. You know, uh, you know, I'm a technician, but I work in a retail store, so I have to do retail stuff and deal with you know, on that level. So it can, somebody could come in and say something real crazy, and it's like, okay, I know that was racist, but do I react how I'm thinking, or do I think about everything I have to take care of because of this job, right?
Right.
Whereas I know, and I have anger issues. And so most times I instantly get mad, especially, um, especially once I get home, because it's like, man, I've been having to be nice all day, and now here I am, I'm back home, and it's like now I get to be free, and then you say something. And I was raised like most men, you're prideful. So if you say something hurtful, my mind instantly wants to go back to retaliation mode. You say something hurtful, I want to hurt you back, or let's talk about that, and versus, like you say, taking that moment of silence or that pause, which is just a brief moment of silence, just nothing, recalibrate, and maybe even go down a route to why did they respond that way? Because most times it's just a miscommunication. Well, I assumed you were talking about this. Well, I thought you were talking about that, versus just attack, 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 attack.
Right.
So that's really, how it kind of operates or shows up in my life for the most part, which is interesting because, like, I was thinking about that, man. Most of the times, like, our real big issues, or at least for me, and I know it's a lot of people out there, really rears its head when you're at home, because a lot of the other time you're kind of on autopilot. When I'm at work and I'm working on an iPad 4 or whatever, my mind isn't on all of this stuff. I'm like, okay, I can't short this out. I can't do this. Or if I'm just having a conversation with somebody about whatever, my mind's on that. It's when I get home, because I'm being somebody else, or not somebody else, but I'm in a different situation. So when I come home, we're dealing with it. Like, all of those other distractions are off, and most time you just kind of sit there chilling, on the couch, and babe walks by, she might say something, or you might even say something, and they don't respond the way you thought they would. And now, sometimes silence can be bad too, because I know, man, a lot of times I'd rather not say anything, because in my head I'm just like, man, I'm not even finna respond to that. With being not really picking up on the cues, like, all right, man, it's been a whole hour, and then you're like, okay, how are they responding to my silence? And so again, it's that yin and yang, man. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
So it's almost hearing what's going on, and then just our willingness in a relationship, especially, or even in, when we have a son or daughter that wants to express themselves, and maybe it's not the right, moment, due to the circumstances, is just to, kind of, like you said, just take that pause and not react, and maybe, or table something. I think that's another, way that we can, kind of, interact in situations that might be, uncomfortable, to just, maybe, I hear what you're saying, can we create some time this evening to talk about this? Or, I'm not in a place mentally or physically or whatever it is right now. So I appreciate you bringing this up, but, can we, maybe table this, till a time. So that's, it's created into the silence or some pausing around that situation, but it's acknowledgement of there is something for us to talk about. And let's just, I'd rather do it at a time that's going to be the most beneficial for us to hopefully resolve and move forward in. So in doing that, that oftentimes creates, a different, kind of environment to be vulnerable, to, share how we feel. Because I think, like you said, you come home from work and, we had whatever went on in our day, impacting sometimes, unfortunately, how we react to things. And, it's we know, when we're in those situations of feeling the stress, that it's very difficult to, kind of communicate in a way that's going to be the most effective. So it's that willingness to pause. So I'm interested too, just to kind of throw this out there in the middle of this, like, if we just all of a sudden just pause right now. I mean, that can be experienced a lot of different ways, right? I mean, it could be, just a time just to let everything that we've said previously to kind of settle in, or it could be that we just don't know what to say next. I mean, there's all these different things that can come up in that situation where you just stop, pause, be comfortable with that silence, knowing that there's nothing right, nothing wrong. It's just, just that, kind of bringing yourself into the moment. So, because if we just go silent right now, what else is there other than us kind of in a space where we're just sharing that energy, either visually or, physically, or, just through sound, where we have that engagement. But, if there's that, it's like when we meditate, we close our eyes and we go inward, and everything else, this whole external life kind of disappears, at least from a visual standpoint. And that silence that's created through that allows us to, kind of, I wouldn't say devalue, but remove some of the impacts that the visual world can, kind of how it affects us. Because as we, sit in a room and we're talking with somebody and we're engaged in a conversation, there's so many different distractions that come up that remove us from that connection versus, that silence, that we can actually just sit in each other's presence and maybe not say anything, and just to feel that energy that, two human beings can share, knowing that maybe there's nothing to say, and that's okay. Maybe there's nothing to express, and that's okay. But I think then you do have to be aware of the opposite of that, because I've shared on this channel before of silence within my family at times when I was growing up, to where that it felt uncomfortable because we weren't engaging in conversations, we weren't kind of doing things that kept us as as a family kind of more connected. I mean, we all loved each other and had a lot of great things as we grew up, but just not having those conversations. So silence can be, as I mentioned earlier, can also be something that impacts us in a different way, that might not be as fulfilling as, those times where, silence can actually create a lot of openness to, what's available to us.
Man, yeah, that's man, I was just sitting here thinking like, man, how quiet I am sometimes. Because now I'm sitting here thinking like, man, silence for me most of the time is really bad. When I'm alone,
Yeah.
when I'm alone, man, it just helps me. Not even help me. It just kind of takes me to a place to where it's just it becomes a constant loop. And I feel like I said that already, but it's like, man, sitting here thinking like, wow, it's so easy to get caught up in that. And there's a lot of miscommunications with it too sometimes.
Yeah. Even with our own inner dialogue, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Because and I think what it is for me, a lot of it is sometimes it's fear because you don't want to hurt the other person, or and a lot of times it's pride. It's pride. It's like, well, I don't want to be taken advantage of, so I have to say something, or I might make this person mad, so let me not say anything versus facing the problem. Because it's a lot of times that I just think, in a relationship, something might happen. She might do something or say something, and I just assume, oh, well, she's pissed off. And so I don't say anything. It's just like, all right, well, she's mad. And then because now we're just acting too different. I'm thinking she's mad, so I'm standoffish, and she's probably looking for something else. And here I am trying to do this. And then once it comes to a head, it's like, well, damn. Okay, all I had to do was just ask. And then the pride thing too, like, God, my God, it's so hard for me to shut the hell up sometimes. It really is, because again, it's that my pride. I'm a man, how I've been raised. I don't want to be feel like you're using me, or I'm not gonna be a doormat type of deal. So it's no. And then it's, well, how long do I stay quiet? Or am I wrong if I bring this up? So it is a minefield of stuff when it comes to it. It really is. But, and it's crazy, as much, I guess, lack for a better word, damage that it can cause or problems that it can bring up, it brings up just that much healing too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just noticing, like, how you know, what it can go a lot of different ways, but at the end of the day, I think I posted, and you said a lot to it. Thought is just a thought, but it's all about how we react to it.
Right.
So silence isn't going to go anywhere. You can't stop the loops. Like when we was just silent, it started off like, oh shit, I wonder what our listeners are thinking. And then it just went into, okay, just take a deep breath, relax.
Right.
And then it was actually nothing for a moment. It was just breathing and enjoying the breath. And then we came back on. So it's just as simple as that, you know. But again, it's our programming that makes it what it is. Like I've been programmed to react. I've been programmed to get angry. And I've been programmed to go into a mental dialogue when it's quiet time, you know, versus just being, you know. So it's kind of interesting how that happens. I don't know why I went back to that. It's just,
If that's what you were thinking.
Heavy on me. Yeah. Kind of preaching to myself a little bit, because, you know, it was just a miscommunication, you know, with him coming home and me, you know, going out to do something. And it was just like, well, shit. I thought it was understood because I told you I had this to do at this time. You never said anything. So I thought we were good. But apparently we weren't, you know. So it's, you know, it's just stuff like that. You can't bypass it.
No. And I think it's knowing that, because sometimes we feel like we can change how somebody else looks or experiences something because that's going to serve us better and we're going to understand each other better. So if I can make you understand, you know, what I'm going through, then you'll get me. It's like, that's not your job. You know, my job is only to deal with how I react to things. I cannot help or fix or alter how you respond to things. And I think when we take ownership in that, and sometimes that's creating that silence, and it's that willingness just to kind of swallow what we need to say, knowing it's not going to be helpful. But, you know, and you, the listener, I mean, you're in control of how you react to things. You're in control of how you react to silence. Is the silence something you're yearning for because you've got so much busy things going on in your head to where you need that silence, or is silence serving you, you know, in a negative way to where you want to say these things, you want to share these things, you want to have others experience these things through your voice, that you're remaining silent and not sharing these things because of upbringing, experiences, all these things that can keep us from, you know, sharing our voice, these things that we want to, you know, yell out in the world. We want to stand up on top of a mountain and declare these things to ourselves and to others, that this is who I am, and this is what I believe, and this is my purpose, and this is why I feel like I'm, you know, wanting to you know, live this amazing life. You know, ask yourself, you know, what does silence look like for you? Again, it can have so many different meanings, and useful ways to really understand, you know, how we can move forward in our life. You know, again, to create more silence, to where that's going to, you know, have, you know, kind of a calming effect on us, all the way up into, especially as men, right? It's like, dude, there's no need to respond. There's no need. Just let it go. And there's times where we, you know, we have to just let it go because it serves no value. All it does is, if we respond, knowing that we're going to get that negative result in our response, that's just feeding our ego. And we don't need to feed our ego. Our ego is part of who we are. But if we, you know, acknowledge the ego, let go of the need for us to always be the receiver of the energy and then allow this energy to move outward and be shared by everybody, that becomes more reciprocal, in the world. We start feeling that willingness to just let go and trust that, we all have this innate desire to connect and to love and to, be a positive force in this world. So I'm going to leave it with that. And that's kind of feels a good place for me. Just kind of challenge you, the listeners, again, to, kind of look at how this topic resonates for you in your life. And for you, Cedric, just understanding, with your own experiences, just how you can continue to, as you evolve as the next version of the man that you are, be curious, right? And there's no perfect way to do it. I think just our willingness, and you shared with us earlier about your coaching practice, just keep moving forward, keep taking action. Don't ever just let go and say I have no other choice to create more silence or more pausing in my life. Yeah, you do. And I'm not going to just buy into that whole notion that this is it, or I've got I can't do something. It's like, yeah, you can. So appreciation to you, the listeners. Appreciation to you, Cedric, for being just you. I don't need to go into deep conversation about that, because I think the world knows that I think you're an amazing man, and I'm going to continue to share that. So I will leave that to you and your closing statements, experience.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking about the yin and the yang, around this silence topic. You can't look at it this way. You probably can't fully control everything that enters the mind, because some things you just see. Red is red, or whatever. But you can control how you react to it. There's no, like Ron said, there's no right or wrong to it. It's not wrong or right that silence can put me or you into a loop. That's not right or wrong. It's not right or wrong if you can get out of it. But what I do believe is a healing thing is when you look at that yin and yang, you got the loop that just keeps you stuck and the silence that gives you peace. Try to figure out a natural balance or a good way to be the line that creates the yin and the yang down the middle. That's the part of being or living life to the fullest, as people say. I'm living my best life. Your best life is in that comfort zone of being uncomfortable. Just, in the silent moment, it can be awkward in a room with people you don't know. That could be awkward. It's silence. But become comfortable being uncomfortable, and then that'll give you a voice or get you to a point to where you can quiet a yelling or a mean or whatever type of voice. It can do both things, but you have to be comfortable with being that middle line of that yin and yang. Yeah, man, that's my little thoughts, my little piece of the pie.
Love that.
2 cents, as they say. And Ron, you know how I feel about you. Love you to death, man. Love y'all to death. Y'all keep us coming back. And until next time, man, I guess we'll see y'all next week. Namaste.